Decap Attack is an action platformer developed by Vic Tokai, released for the Sega Mega Drive/Genesis in 1991. Pretty straightforward plot. A demon by the name of Max Decap has emerged from the underworld, causing the Isle of Appendages to separate, where they can easily be controlled by his underlings. It is up to this mummy-like creature, who has his face in his torso, named Chuck D-Head, to save the day, with some assistance from his creator, Dr. Frank N. Stein, and his right-hand thing, Igor, to stop Max Decap and his minions from taking over everything. The gameplay for this title is very similar to Vic Tokai's previous platformers like Kid Cool, so if you've played any of those, the controls should feel very familiar. Chuck can jump and hover in midair for a bit by mashing the button. You can also take out enemies by jumping on them to bury them in the ground. But you also have a punch to dispose of enemy threats too. Well, the game calls it a punch anyway, but in actuality it's more Chuck extending his face out. Gruesome. The baddies aren't too much trouble to deal with. Most of them just walk around and fire projectiles occasionally. But the enemies that are gonna get on your nerves the most are the freaking ghosts. These wee buggers like to hide in the statues where you can find stuff, so take caution when breaking doors open. Those grinning fish are also really annoying since they move fast and take 2 hits to defeat. Speaking of statues, by destroying these you can find things like coins for the bonus minigame, hearts to restore your health, heart containers to extend your health, and this skull which you can throw as a projectile whenever you attack. Try not to get hit when you have it or else it'll go away, because if you want to beat this game, you gotta use your head. Ugh, stupid puns. But the best thing you can find inside those statues are potions. By pressing the button to check the inventory, you can see everything you have, use them, or ask the professor or Igor what they do. These potions are pretty much temporary power-ups they can activate at will. There are 6 different kinds, each with a different effect. The blue one makes you invincible, the red one takes out every enemy on the screen, the green one freezes time, the orange one gives your punch more range and power, the yellow one creates a powerful projectile that can only be used in boss fights, and the dual one makes you move faster and jump higher. The potions are all super fun to use, and are handy when you're in a pinch. I also love the music tracks that play when you activate them. Sadly, most of them can't be used during boss fights. I think that would make them too easy otherwise. Decap Attack has 7 worlds with 3 stages each, and there's some variety to these. There are 2 auto-scrolling levels where something is chasing you and you have to avoid it like touch Chuck for an instant death. And some levels have these amusing poles you can swing off of. Oh, and here's a little tip. If you bounce off the very top of the thing, it can restore your health, so use that to your advantage. In the 3rd stage of each world, you also need to find an item that's hidden in the stage in order to exit it, and defeat the boss that lies at the end. They're not too tough once you've memorized their attack patterns. And after beating every 3rd level, you can use the coins you collected in that world to play a bonus minigame, where you can earn extra lives and portions. This is a fine looking Mega Drive game. Everything is creepy in a cartoony way, but also colourful and expressive, making for visuals that really pop. I did have an issue discerning what clouds are backdrops and which ones were platforms, since they look very similar, but other than that, these graphics look great. Also, I love how your hearts are actual beating hearts. And the soundtrack is fantastic, filled with sinister, upbeat and catchy tunes. I recall using one of the tracks from this game in an Eerie Endorsement prior, so it definitely has my seal of approval. Overall, Decap Attack is a great platformer for the Genesis, and is a game I actually go back to often on Halloween because of it. It's not perfect, some of the levels are filled with instant kill lava and such, but this game is awesome, and I highly recommend it. Apparently others seem to think that too, as it's been re-released many times in certain Mega Drive compilations. That's how I was first introduced to it. I should also mention that Decap Attack had its own comic strip in Select the Comic, an official magazine that featured Sega-themed comic strips in the United Kingdom by Fleetway. Usually you'll hear people talking about the Sonic comics from that, especially their version of Super Sonic, but you're also likely to hear people talking about the Decap Attack comic strips, because according to my research, they actually went on for quite a while, almost as long as the Sonic ones did. I haven't read any of them myself, but if they went on for this long, they've got to be as good as the game, right?
Hey Bear, what you doing?
I was in the middle of an Eerie Endorsement before you came along and ruined it.
Oh? What were you? Decap Attack? You mean the Western reskin of that Magical Hat game?
What the hell are you talking about?
Oh, you don't know? This title was actually a completely different game when it first released in Japan. I believe it was called Magical Hat no Battery Turbo Daiboken, or Magical Hat's Great Turbo Flight Adventure, a game based upon an anime series. However, due to licensing issues, the game was given a spooky overhaul when it released in other parts of the world.
Oh, so we have another Doki Doki Panic Super Mario Bros. 2 USA situation on our hands here?
Something like that. But there's actually more differences than just the visuals. Magical Hat has one-hit deaths, but the game gives you a lot more lives to compensate. And instead of a skull, you throw around this egg-looking fella, who reminds me of Dizzy from the Dizzy series. There's also a few potions that are exclusive to this game, like one where you get to summon this giant mech to fight bosses with, or one that allows you to fly around in a helicopter and submarine. And every level ends with a bonus stage in this version. There's even an exclusive slot machine one here. I'd love to list all the differences here, but I don't want to hijack this review for too long. But if any of you are curious, Hardcore Gaming 101 has a page listing all the differences between the two games. I'll put a link to it in the description.
Are you done ruining the video?
Actually, I came here to ask you for a favor. Do you take requests for these things? There's actually something I wish for you to cover.
A request? For what?
Could you come with me for a moment? I'll give you all the deets.
Okay.